Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be my Orilium TBR for the month of August. So August is the second month of the year that G from Book Roast hosts the Orilium Readathon. It used to be the Magical Readathon based on Harry Potter. She's since changed it to be her own thing. It's very cool. I have several vlogs where I've made my character for this year, and then also I did the spring semester at Orilium, and then based on I think it's called the calling that you pick, which is your career or your major, if you will. You have certain classes that you have to take, and each class has a prompt. And then in the fall semester, you have to pass exams at a certain level. So most of mine are O, which is the normal pass rate. And then I have 1Q, which is the one level up from that. So I'm gonna read through the prompts and tell you what I picked for each of them. So without further ado, I'm just gonna hop into my schedule for the fall semester at Orilium. I forgot, I'm a faked wild cartographer. That is my major or whatever. So I need an O in elemental studies. And for that, the prompt is to read a book with the word Earth in the title. And I am going to attempt again to read A Wizard of Earthsea. This is the first book in Ursula K. Le Guin's, what is the series called? Earthsea, the Earthsea series. I don't know how many books there are. I do know that a couple of booktubers tried to do a read along for this and they gave up because they didn't like it. So I've heard that Harry Potter is heavily inspired by this. I don't know how true that is, but I believe this has a magic school. I believe this is about a guy who, Earthsea cycle, okay. It's about Ged, or Jed, G-E-D, I don't know. The greatest sorcerer in all Earthsea was called Sparrowhawk in his reckless youth. Hungry for power and knowledge, Sparrowhawk tampered with long-held secrets and loosed a terrible shadow upon the world. This is the tale of his testing, how he mastered the mighty words of power, tamed an ancient dragon, and crossed death's threshold to restore balance. So again, I am hoping to get through this month. It is relatively short. It's less than 200 pages. It is also written for children. So I'm hoping that it will not be too complicated to read, even though it was written quite a while ago. And I also hope I like it, because I know that, again, those other booktubers did not really like it, but I don't know. I just want to give it a shot, and if I don't like it, then I just won't finish the series, and I'll just read the first one and be done with it, because this is the only one that I own. But I did want to give it a shot, since I do own it. My next class that I have to take is I need to obtain an O in animal studies, and for that the prompt is to let your pet pick a book. So I'm going to insert the footage right here of Marvel picking for me. Hello, I'm going to let my dogs pick. I think Marvel is probably going to pick the book, but Murphy's in here too, and they will both get treats. These are my options. I have The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, White Teeth by Zadie Smith, The Stranger by Albert Camus, because I put it on a TBR and never read it. And then Dead to the World by Charlene Harris. I'm not sure which book in that series I'm on, but I'll just read whatever book I'm on. So I'm gonna set these up and then let Marvel pick. Okay, go ahead, Marv. Which one? Which one? Good boy, just straight down the line. Okay, so I'm gonna read The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Marvel picked The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. So I'm not entirely sure what this is about. I do know that this touches on colorism, and it's about a little girl who I think wishes that her eyes were blue, and maybe they turn blue. I'm really not sure, but apparently this is the debut by Toni Morrison. It's her first novel, and it is set in Toni Morrison's girlhood home of Lorain, Ohio. It tells the story of Black 11-year-old Pecola Breedlove. Pecola prays for her eyes to turn blue so that she will be as beautiful and beloved as all the blonde, blue-eyed children in America. In the autumn of 1941, the year the marigolds in the Breedlove's garden do not bloom, Pecola's life does change in painful, devastating ways. So I really like Toni Morrison. I'm trying to read all of her books. There's quite a few of them, but I've read, I think, 3 or 4. I really do like Toni Morrison's works. I would like to read more of them, so I'm excited to read this one. The next class I need to get an O in is astronomy. And for that, the prompt is using your Spotify or whatever music you listen to, whatever music app you listen to. Go to the app, look at the last song you listened to, and pick a word in the title of that song that matches a book, if that makes sense. I have not done this prompt yet. So I'm gonna open Spotify on my laptop, and it doesn't have anything. I'm gonna try to see if I can find recently played, because it's showing a screen that just doesn't have anything playing on it. It would probably be more accurate if I got on it on my phone, but I use my phone to film. But I actually might do that, and I'll let you know what it says. Hold on. Okay, so the last song that I listened to on Spotify was Think of Me by Maddie Diaz. So for that, I just was thinking of books that I could use, and I think I'm gonna read You Think It, I'll Say It by Curtis Sittenfeld, which is a collection of short stories. So, or like, it's either short stories or essays. I'm not entirely sure. I'm just looking through this document that I have of books that I want to read. And I originally was going to do You'll Be the Death of Me by Karen M. McManus. And then I realized that I actually have already read that. So this document needs to be updated. But I can get the audiobook of that from my library. So that should be an easy one to tackle as well this month. The next class that I need to take and get an O in is alchemy. And for this, the prompt for the O grade is to read the first book in a series. And for this, I'm actually going to read Scythe again. I'm going to reread Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I have been wanting to pick the series back up anyways, and I finished it. Honestly, I think I only read it last year, but it has been just over a year, and I really enjoyed it, and I just feel like I want to reread it. So I'm at least going to read the first one, and then if I decide to continue rereading, I own the second one. I don't own the third one, but I can get an ebook of it. That's how I read it last time. So I might buy it since I am already rereading it. So it's possible that I will reread it again. This is everyone probably knows what this is by now, but this is a YA dystopian series set in our world, but in the future, and they've mastered all diseases and eradicated all natural causes of death. So people can no longer die. So there are these things called scythes, which are people in this world who are trained up to basically be the population control. And we follow Citra and Rowan, who are two scythe apprentices. We follow their friendship, their relationship with each other, their relationship with the world and their families, and also them as on their journey of being trained to be these killers. They end up going separate ways because they have different people training them and influencing them. And it's just an exploration of a future like that. So I really liked the series. I remember what happens at the end, and I didn't love it. But I thought it was kind of weird the way that things wrapped up. But I really liked this first book, and I thought this first book was a really strong part. I know it doesn't really function as a standalone because of the way it ends. It ends on kind of a cliffhanger for the next book. But I do really enjoy this one still. So again, I'm gonna at least read this, and then if I want to continue my reread, I will continue my reread of this series. The next class I need to get an O in is demonology, and the prompt for this one is to pull up Goodreads or Instagram and find the first book that you see on there. So I'm gonna pull up Goodreads right now, and I'm gonna tell you what the first book that I see is. I'm also, my TBR is so out of control that I'm only picking a book that I already have interest in because I don't want to just pick something random. And also if it's the second book in a series and I haven't started that series, I will read the first book, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to scroll through here and see if I can find anything that sounds interesting to me. All right, so the first book that I'm seeing is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I already have this on hold for my library, so I know that it probably won't be here in time. If it is here in time, I will read this for this prompt. But it just came out. It's the second book in a series of standalones for for contemporary romance, adult contemporary romance. And I read the first book in the series last month, and I really, really enjoyed it. At that time, I was also trying to read Yours Truly because it's Part of Your World didn't sound like something I would like, but I really, really loved Part of Your World, so I hope I also love Yours Truly. All right, the next book that's showing up is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. So if I cannot get a hold of Yours Truly, I will read Moby Dick. This is actually a book. Moby Dick is one of my dad's favorite books. It sounds horrendously boring to me. I believe it's about this guy who is a whaler, and he's trying to catch this giant whale, but I think the whale also is trying to capsize his ship, and it's supposed to be a metaphor for chasing your dreams, or it's an Icarus-like metaphor, I think. Oh my God, I did my makeup and I wipe my brushes off in my hand sometimes, and I can't tell by looking at my hand, but on there you can see how orange that spot is. That is wild. Anyways, I hope I like this. I don't know if I will. I will let you know what I end up reading for this, because I am going to be vlogging this whole month. I don't know if I said that already, but I am planning on vlogging the whole month. So the next class is my only Q class, so I have to read 2 prompts for this class. The first is to read something off your end of the year TBR. If you are new here, this is my end of the year TBR. So I'm trying to read not every book that I own this year, obviously, but anything from this top shelf, I'm gonna count. So I'm gonna let myself mood read for that one. And then the second prompt in that set of prompts, I guess, is to read a book that has a shield on the cover or in the title. I had a really hard time with this one, but I think I'm gonna read Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell, which is the first book in the Greatcoat series. The series is pretty old now, but I do want to read it. It's been on my TBR. It's one of like the longest standing things on my TBR. I know Jade from JD Ray Reads loves Sebastian de Castell in general, and then this series in particular. If you can see, I will hopefully be able to zoom in where the shield is on this cover because I looked for it. It's not the guy who's standing there, but there's like a red thing this way, and there's a guy in the front of the red thing who has a shield. So, that is the book that I'm planning on reading for this. Hopefully I get to it, and hopefully I enjoy it. I'm a little hesitant to start another series, but I think I'll like it. And those are the last of the classes that I have to take. So I have to take 6 classes, which is 7 prompts total. So I have to read 7 books just to pass this readathon in general. There are also special, like, not side quests, but different things that you can get. So you can become an apothecary, which is a job that you can have. You can also become a bog cataloger. You can get your license in dragon riding, and you can also get a certificate in being a sand ship engineer. And each of those have their own prompts. Again, if I haven't already said this, I will link G's video announcing this readathon down below. So if you have questions, you can go there. But for the dragon riding license, if I do decide to do that, if I finish this and have more time left in the month, which I've been reading a lot more lately, knock on wood. So that is a possibility. You have to read 2 books with dragons in them, and then you have to watch something that has dragons in it. I don't know what I'll watch. Maybe I'll watch one of the Harry Potter movies just for old time's sake. But 2 books with dragons. I'm planning on reading Burn by Patrick Ness and The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I literally went on Goodreads, and there's dragons as like a subgenre on there. If you know how to search by genre, that's what I did for this. And I picked 2 books that were already on my TBR. And I picked standalones because there are quite a few series that are on my TBR that I like want to get to eventually. But I'm, again, very hesitant to start a new series right now because I have so many going and I want to wrap some up. So that is my plan for that one. For Apothecary, the prompt is to read 2 books with plants on the cover. And for this, I've chosen 2 for my own TBR, but I might end up reading something else. I chose Washington Black by S.I. Edeguyen, which is about an 11-year-old boy who, sorry, I just spoiled the other one. I also chose Universal Harvester by John Darnell. If you read Devil House, that came out last year and was very popular. I didn't really like it, but this is the same author. It's the guy who is the songwriter for the Mountain Goats, or he is the Mountain Goats. That's John Darnell. His stage name is the Mountain Goats when he is a musician. I'll just read you the back of this one since I've got it. I'm holding it up. It says, it's the late 90s, and you can find Jeremy Helt at the Video Hut in Nevada, Iowa. Excuse me. A small town in the center of the state. The job is good enough for Jeremy, quiet and predictable, and it gets him out of the house, where he lives with his dad and where they both try to avoid missing mom, who died 6 years ago in a car wreck. But when a local school teacher comes in to return her copy of Targets, an old movie starring Boris Karloff, the transaction jolts Jeremy out of his routine. There's something on it, she says as she leaves the store, though she doesn't elaborate. 2 days later, another customer returns the tape and registers the same odd complaint. There's another movie on this tape. Okay, in Universal Harvester, the once placid Iowa fields and farmhouse become sinister, imbued with loss and instability and foreboding. As Jeremy and those around him are absorbed into the tapes, they become part of another story, one that unfolds years into the past and years into the future, part of an impossible search for something someone lost that they would do anything to regain. Matt got me this for my birthday or Christmas a few years ago. I never picked it up, and I would like to. And as you can see, there's like corn, wheat, something in the field here. That is a plant. This book, again, has plants on it. And this is about an 11-year-old George Washington Black, a field slave on a Barbados sugar plantation. And he ends up being chosen by some explorer to go on like adventures with him. I don't know if it's as a servant or what, but, oh yeah, he gets chosen by Christopher Wilde, who is an abolitionist and also naturalist, explorer, inventor, etc. So it's about his adventures. And I believe he goes to London and just sort of all over the world with this guy. And I'm excited to read this one. I've heard really good things about this. I got this at a bookstore here in Kansas City that is actually like part bookstore, part bar when I was interning here originally. And I can't remember what it's called now, Afterward. Tavern and Books, that's what it's called. But I do want to read that. Again, I bought it a few years ago, never got to it. It's time. For the apothecary job, you also have to take pictures of 5 different flowers and post them somewhere to social media. So if I do that prompt, I will likely take videos and put them in my vlogs, and that will be my fulfillment of that part of the prompt. to become a bog cataloger. You have to read a book by a body of water or that has a body of water on the cover. If I do the latter, I'm planning on reading The Invention of Wings. I don't know if you can tell, but this is the sky and this is the horizon and this is water. Okay? And I believe this is set in motion on Sarah's 11th birthday in 1803 when she is given ownership of 10-year-old Handful, who is to be her handmaid. And so it's about the friendship between a white girl and her black handmaid slave. I'm curious to see if I will like this. It was in Oprah's book club, apparently, according to the sticker. And I've heard good things about it, but I'm just curious about whether this type of story will work. I believe it is a historical fiction told in, it honestly might just be one timeline. For some reason, I thought this had a present day component, but it might not. So if I read for the bog cataloger, this is probably what I will end up reading for that. And the other part of that is to read an animal documentary. My coworker actually recommended a documentary called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's about an ocelot, and it's a guy who meets this ocelot and then has to rehab it and release it back to the wild. So I'll probably, my feet are asleep. I'll probably watch that because he asked me to watch it 6 months ago and I never got around to it. And for the Sandship Engineer certificate, the prompt for this one is to read 2 books with a desert setting. So I have 3 books that are options for this, and they're all continuing on in series that I've already started. 2 of them would be to complete series that I've started because they're just duologies. So those would be The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Audier, which is the sequel to The Wrath and the Dawn, which is a 1001 Arabian Nights retelling. And I started it a couple years ago, and I would like to just finish it out. I didn't love it, but I want to get it off my TBR, so I'd like to finish it. And then the other one that I read last summer, I think, it's Release by Lucy Christopher, which is her recently released, actually, released. But it came out last year or the year before. But it's a sequel to Stolen by Lucy Christopher, which is about a girl who gets kidnapped and taken to Australia, and she has to live in the desert with this guy. I have a vlog where I read this book, and I absolutely loved that book, so I will link that vlog for you somewhere. So I really want to read that book. Again, I think the original book came out in 2013, 2012. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But the sequel just came out. So I'm very excited to see what happens, and I think it's set in the future. The girl is sort of grown up now, and it's kind of her reconciling what happened to her during that time. I really want to read that. But the other book that is an option, if I decide that I'm just not going to read the Wrath and the Dawn sequel, The Rose and the Dagger, is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, which is the second book in the David Bad trilogy. I started it, actually, I think I started it in April. I think I read the first book for Orilium. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I definitely vlogged reading it. So I think that's what vlog it was for. Either that or it was for my creation of a character. But regardless, I don't own that book. I owned the first one. That's the only one in that series I bought. I would like to buy the other ones so that I can read them because I think it's a series that I would revisit. But I do want to continue in that series. Finally, there is an Impling thing. Again, go to G's video to understand really what all of these things are. But basically, she has this chart that you can fill out. And you have to complete all the little things to call this Impling as part of demonology. And so the prompts, you have to actually do 2 prompts for each book. One book can cover all of the prompts, which is what I have done, so I will tell you what that is in just a second. But you have to complete the prompts around the circle to it's the connection that you're trying to get, if that makes sense. So the prompts are as follows. Between 400 and 450 pages, one letter has to appear twice and only twice in the title. The book has to have been released this year or last year, so 2022 or 2023. There has to be some blue on the cover. You have to start the book at night, and it has to be an author that you've read from before. So, and then author that you've read from before connects back with between 400 and 450 pages. I hope that makes sense. Again, go to G's video and watch her explanation of it because it's fantastic, and she gives 3 or 4 examples. But what I am choosing, if I can find it, I have a couple of options, but tentatively, I am hoping to read The Cartographers, the paperback version by Pink Shepherd, because the paperback is 400 pages, so it fits the page count. The letter E appears twice, okay? And only twice. It appears in the and then at the end of Cartographers. Yeah, it was released March 15th, 2022. It is entirely blue on the cover, so it fits that. I can start at night easily, given. That's kind of like a given prompt. And then I read the Book of M and absolutely loved it by Pink Shepherd a few years ago, I think 2020. But that was my favorite book of the year, 2021. It was one of my favorite books of the year, whatever year I read it. I really loved that book. I don't know exactly what The Cartographers is about, so I will read that to you now. And again, this only works if I can find the paperback of this, because the hardcover is 392 pages, so it would not fit. So this says, what is the purpose of a map? Nell Young's whole life and greatest passion is cartography. Her father, Dr. Daniel Young, is a legend in the field and Nell's personal hero, but she hasn't seen or spoken to him ever since he cruelly fired her and destroyed her reputation after an argument over an old, cheap gas station highway map. But when Dr. Young is found dead in his office at the New York Public Library, with the very same seemingly worthless map hidden in his desk, Nell can't resist investigating. To her surprise, she soon discovers that the map is incredibly valuable and exceedingly rare. In fact, she may now have the only copy left in existence because a mysterious collector has been hunting down and destroying every last one, along with anyone who gets in the way. But why? To answer that question, Nell embarks on a dangerous journey to reveal a dark family secret and discovers the true power that lies in maps. So, I don't know how interesting I actually find that, but I loved the last book I read by Pink Shepherd so much that I do really want to read that book. So hopefully I like it. Again, the other options that I had to fill this, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez actually fills all of these prompts, but since I'm reading that for another prompt, I cannot use it here. And Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter also fulfills all of these prompts. However, that is the second book in a series, and I believe the series just follows the same like detective type character. So I don't know if it matters that I read that without reading the original book in that series, but I have read a book by Karen Slaughter before. She writes really intense thrillers, and so if I'm in the mood for that, I can pick that up instead. But again, I'm nervous. So if you've read Girl Forgotten, let me know if I absolutely have to read, I think it's Andrea Oliver is the series name. Let me know if I have to read the first book in that series in order to grasp what happens in the sequel, if that makes sense. So that's it. Those are, I don't even know how many books that I potentially might read in August to fulfill the Orilium, like the magical readathon for Orilium. August Equinox. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope it does. But let me know in the comments down below if you are participating in this readathon. If you are, let me know what your major is and what you're reading for any of these prompts. Also, let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about today and how you felt about them. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel because I do try to post one video every week at least. And I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!